This is Fort Moultrie on Sullivan's Island near Charleston, South Carolina, really closer to Mount Pleasant, but this is on the north shore of the Cooper River, which separates Charleston from Mount Pleasant and Sullivan's Island and faces the Atlantic Ocean on one side and the Cooper River to the south. This fort's been here since the Revolutionary War. It was used during the Revolutionary War against England, also during the Civil War between the North and the South, the Confederacy, as a federal fort, and then later used during World War I and World War II to defend against the Germans, keeping a lookout for submarines, etc., that might threaten the port of Charleston. You can see here this fort was active from 1776 all the way up until 1947, which is a couple years after the end of World War II. As a result of this varied history, some parts are very old and some parts are less old. This tower looks more like the bridge of a ship and is one of the more recent additions to the fort as a lookout tower. Underneath these mounds were storage areas for cannonballs and gunpowder, etc., as well as shelter for whatever troops were stationed here. At the beginning of the Civil War, there were federal, meaning northern troops based here that were fearful of being overrun from land. The fort was designed to defend against the ocean, but not for attack from land. If you look over there a little bit to the left of the flag, you can actually see Fort Sumter, which was fired upon from Charleston to start the Civil War. Shortly before the shooting started, the people from this fort decided it was indefensible and got on boats and went across the water there in the night to join the troops and construction workers that were manning Fort Sumter, which also was undermanned at the time. As a result, Fort Moultrie was abandoned and essentially vacant until the Confederate soldiers took control for a while. There's a pretty nice beach area just beyond the edge of the property facing the Cooper River and facing the Atlantic Ocean, but there's a lot of current and fairly steep drop-offs to the shipping channel, so the water is generally considered too dangerous to do much in the way of swimming, but it is a popular place for sunbathing and for fishing. Across the water here. The biggest surprise, at least for me, is that Chief Osceola of the Seminole is buried here. Who knew? After the Seminole Wars in Florida, he was taken prisoner here, but only was here about 30 days. He was given the run of the place, but developed a throat infection of some kind and died. Another piece of history is his real name was William Powell, and he was only 25% of Indian blood. He was 75% Scottish. You heard it here first.